I would now like to ask Jan Lesser from the German Marshall Fund here in Brussels to look also a bit in between as somebody who is here, but he is also not defending US interests, but to a certain extent also to bring in to the Brussels debate interests from the United States before giving the floor to the policy level of the European Parliament and the policy level of a member country of the European Union. Please.
Thank you very much indeed. I may be the only Asian here. I'm probably the only American here, although I don't know. That's always hard to say. But I'm certainly an American sitting in Brussels in an institution that's American, but you can tell by the name, is also deeply embedded in European affairs and committed to transatlantic cooperation. Maybe I could just make 3 points reflecting on some of the things that have already been said. The first is really sort of an obvious point, but it seems to me that amid all this incredible flux on the international scene, we have to wonder whether this construct of soft power is a little more complicated than we might think. It surely strikes me that soft power is not always so soft as we make it out to be. When you begin to get into identity debates and discussions about values and norms, not only inside Europe, but even across the Atlantic or certainly north-south from Europe, this can be really very edgy. It's not so soft. The second point I would make is that the hard power piece of this is not always so hard. We have a kind of cartoon image of American military power, and that's the hard security piece of what goes on in the world, and there is some truth to that, whatever we think of it. But there are other aspects that can really be very hard that have long time horizons and involve things more than just the use of force. I mean, whether it's humanitarian intervention with military force or it's transitions after conflict, many things. And when we look out at a world, especially south and east of Europe, where we may, and someone said this, face really a very protracted period of turmoil and chaos and conflict. One only has to think of Syria, but potentially Egypt as well. This question becomes very complicated. Hard power, but with a very sort of soft, over-the-horizon part of it, where Europe, frankly, has many advantages the United States does not. You're much closer. These are places that Europe can reach with its humanitarian capacity and its economic capacity and its ability to play in the mobility and labor equation in a way the United States obviously can never play. I would also say that it's not just an economic project. I mean, I say this really from looking at the Washington debate about this. If you forget about the political and even the geopolitical aspects of what's going on in Europe today, from an American interest point of view, if I can go back to that, a lot of the utility is lost. We very much have a sense, whatever your perspective politically in Washington, that it's intensely political. It's not just about economics. The second point I'd make is just to raise an open question about what Europe does in this realm beyond enlargement. Actually, beyond enlargement is the wrong way to put it, because there will probably be further enlargements. But let's face it, we're in a period of some pause. There's a lot of unfinished business. Key actors like Turkey, key candidates like Turkey are not on a good path at the moment with the European Union or between them. So what else other than enlargement, which has been such an instrument for change around Europe's periphery, both, well, in soft power terms? I don't know. I suspect, and I may say this from the vantage point of a civil society organization, that a lot of this activity really will be in the civil society realm. And there are tremendous opportunities that are being created, especially to the south of Europe, to do new things and to rethink how civil society, north and south, relates to one another. But there are going to be, obviously, and Hugh made some comments about this, there are going to be much more practical things that Europe is going to be called upon to do on trade, on labor mobility, and, you know, to be serious about a southern strategy or a Mediterranean strategy, some progress is presumably going to have to be made on those things. Maybe just I could make a third and final remark from an American perspective again. I very much like Nina Hachigin's article in the magazine that we were told about earlier that we have with us. You know, one of the things that's, I think, very telling about that is the extent to which we still have a kind of cartoon image of how the United States sees Europe, or the debate about Europe in Washington, I should say. There is no longer a debate about why a capable, effective, committed Europe is important to the United States. I mean, I would say almost across the political spectrum. This is not controversial. It might have been 20 years ago. No, the worriers now, whether they're on the right or the left, worry about Europe's capacity. They worry about Europe's vision and mission. It's not so much about defense spending. It's not so much about those things. I think that's worth recalling. Finally, my organization every year does a survey called Translantic Trends, and the big story last year, which I know upset a lot of Europeans, was the notion that Americans increasingly were putting Asia ahead of Europe in their perception of what mattered to the United States. That's how we phrased the question, what mattered to the United States. I think we have to take that apart a little bit. It's not all affinity. In some cases it is. I think with India, when young Americans in particular think about India, it is fashionable. This is a positive vision about what we can do with India. But when it comes to questions of China and other things, this is really about worry, whether it's security worry or economic concerns, whatever it might be. So there's a lot going into that. But I think there is no question that in generational terms, we are facing a shift in the United States. I don't like this strategic pivot business. It's misleading, I think, for a lot of reasons. But in generational terms, there is a shift. Younger Americans are looking elsewhere. And why, and what can be done to redress that? And I suspect, just to end, that one of the key things that could be done to redress that is a kind of reassertion of Europe's political and geopolitical mission in the world beyond just the economic crisis and the technical discussion about that. Thank you.
Very good.